moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Got it.
What is Grimace anyway?
They just came out. We just did it on one of the news items recently. Yeah, maybe you weren't in that episode,
Possibly.
but apparently someone came out and said that he is supposed to be a taste bud, which just freaks me out. That's disgusting. It's like, what? What kind of giant tongue is that?
I always assumed because the Shamrock Shake had the green Grimace character in the commercials that he represented the shake in some way.
Right. He was purple, so I just always associate that with grapes. So I always thought he was grape soda or something. You know what I mean?
There was not a single grape item on the menu because that's healthy, right? I think the closest you got was the scalding apple pies.
I'm not buying the taste bud. That's just too esoteric.
That's weird. I don't know. Yeah, bizarre.
And what about the fry guys? What do they have to do with fries? This is a tangent that I don't want to get down, actually.
This is how we're going to start the show. I don't know. I'm in a good mood, kids.
I think this is the first 2022 movie that we can claim into the new year. So this is big. And we've been waiting for this one for a long time. The new Scream is on deck this week.
So this is what I did. I went to see this on Monday. I came home, as I expected, and watched the first one immediately. Then I watched all the rest of the films again over the course of the week. And then on Friday, I went to see this again.
Wow.
So I am not ready to talk about this movie. I am ready to defend a doctoral dissertation on this whole series.
well,
we're not talking about the whole series.
Yeah, we're not talking about the whole series. We're taking this one. It's like a Siamese twin that needs to be separated.
Except that you can't. And that's one of the big things about this movie.
Yeah, I agree. They tie themselves pretty tightly.
As every requel has done in the last 5 years.
But I did appreciate the term that was coined in this, requel, as Jeff just pointed out.
And one thing I realized, because I just watched all these movies 3 months ago, but watching them again in light of the new film, you really see how they bring back a lot of motifs, a lot of just little things like recurring from the original series. So if you have not seen the other Scream films, sure, you can watch this. I don't know that it'll have the same impact. You might just be like, okay, it's a slasher movie where a bunch of good-looking kids get killed.
They good-looking?
It's really like any other requel, and they say it right in the movie, like the Star Wars reboot, where you have legacy characters and trying to start a new storyline at the same time.
We are meta to the meta extent in this one.
But I think if you have not seen the other films, you maybe won't have the same experience. I feel like you at least need to see the
or
first
you
one.
May have a worse experience if you see the other films.
I'm going to raise my hand right now, which is I did not get a chance to see 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad that we just reviewed the first one again a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Knowing that we were going to be talking about this one, because I think that really seeing the first one helped tremendously. I don't know necessarily that I needed to see 2, 3, and 4 to make heads or tails of this.
And I saw all 3 because we just talked Scream 1 not too long ago. So after seeing that again, I went back and watched 2 and then 3. And then I watched 4 the day before I saw the new Scream. So I was completely ready, with the whole storyline there behind me. And it did affect my enjoyment or non-enjoyment of the new one. But we'll get there. And the second film is the latest from one of our heroes, Bruce Campbell. And it's called Black Friday. It was released. I didn't realize this, but it's, perfect. Just in time for Black Friday in 2021. I was completely unaware of it until maybe a month or two ago when I found it on Amazon.
So it's just been sitting there for the last 3 months.
It's just been sitting there waiting for us to find it. And so we did, and thought it would be a good pairing with Scream.
We did find it.
So do you want to give the in memoriam, Jeff, like we do every week?
Every week. Here we go. It's like March of the Death. Louis Anderson, dead at 68, cancer. Listen, the guy Coming to America, obviously, he had his own cartoon show, Life of Louis, Life with Louis, right? Wasn't that Life with Louis? All right. We also lost Michael Lee Aday, better known as Meatloaf. We're all of a certain age that I think if you didn't own a copy of Bat Out of Hell, your parents did.
Or a sibling did, or somebody in your family did. Yeah.
Everybody has this. I know this was like the soundtrack to my in-laws. They used to, go shooting around the town in their Corvette and blast this album. Now, of course, you can't go 5 minutes without hearing one of his songs on the radio.
Which is the case when anybody passes, unfortunately.
I know, it's like...
But even if he wasn't a multi-million selling recording artist, he'd go down in infamy for his role in Rocky Horror Picture Show alone.
And Fight Club. My 9-year-old nephew was quite concerned. He did not quite understand why my sister was so upset with this. And when she explained it and then showed the kids the songs, he turned around and said straight up, Mom, the meatloaf has expired. So that was not my joke. That's my 9-year-old nephew's joke. Last week we spoke about Encanto. We don't talk about Bruno, his hit number 4.
That's pretty funny.
It's about the only thing we took away that we liked,
which is very funny because we didn't cover it until months later after its release, and now here we are in January, and it's climbing into the top 5.
Yeah, but it's so funny you mentioned that because it's been out for a while, but now all of a sudden I'm seeing all these news articles about this movie, and I'm like, maybe someone was listening to us, who knows? So, but a hit number 4, becoming the highest charting song from a Disney animated movie since 1995. Any guesses as to
The Lion King?
Can You Feel Tonight? The Love Tonight was 94.
Is it still Lion King? Did they release songs from that in 95?
No. It was the movie the following year.
95.
Yeah, 95.
Pocahontas?
Yes.
When was that?
Yeah, you're right. Color of the Wind.
Really? I don't remember that song. Well, I've never seen Pocahontas, so.
What?
No. I was lucky I saw Lion King in 1994.
That is true. I saw it in the theater. I've seen it on Broadway. I'm assuming that Let It Go went to number 1.
You got to assume that, right?
Yeah. So, but I found that interesting. Yeah. So Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's got a hit song on his hand here with this Don't Talk About Bruno. Let's go on. Godzilla. Legendary Monsterverse.
Apple's got me. I resisted.
I was
now,
just about to say.
This would have to be the only thing that would get me to subscribe to Apple, and they've done it. So kudos to you, Apple.
So does this mean that are we not getting new movies?
This would be a tragedy if that were the case.
Because so Chris Black and Matt Fraction, who we just spoke about with the Hawkeye, are co-creators, and Toho Limited is involved in this. But it's going to follow in the footsteps of these legendaries, that Godzilla versus Kong.
Same universe.
Yep. Basically, it's going to follow and explore one family's journey to uncover its buried secrets and the legacy linking them to the secret organization known as Monarch. So it's going to be drama of the week, monster of the week kind of a thing. We go to a different facility. They're all released now. At the end of the last movie, all the monsters were released, right?
So, the big question is, what kind of a budget is this thing going to have? Are they going to be light on the CG and heavy on the human drama? What's going to happen? Yeah.
That's not what we're tuning in for. I want to see some crazy kaiju action.
Yeah. There's no point in doing this if they don't.
Right. Yeah.
You don't want a Walking Dead level soap opera. You want the zombies, right? So it's the same exact thing here.
Yeah. Christina?
Christina has Apple. Yes, she does.
Apple. We'll be coming to your house.
Film the TV with your phone so we can see it. It won't be much difference, right? Because and that's the other thing is that you want to see the kaiju action on the biggest screen that you can in a big theater situation. But I don't know.
I think we have a little bit of time because this was just announced. So speaking of legendary, Christmas is coming early to the studio along with Warner Brothers because they have announced a sequel to A Christmas Story with Peter Billingsley attached. Speaking of requels.
It's a requel.
It's a requel. Yeah. He's not only going to act, but he's also going to produce this. It is entitled A Christmas Story Christmas. The studio is hoping to recreate the same real-life tone of the first movie. Yeah. Reconnect with childhood friends, reconcile the passing of his old man, so we already know his dad died, and callbacks to the initial film. The first one took place in the 40s. This will take place in the 70s. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that we're going to get a Ralphie Scott Varkas reunion here.
Odd that they're not doing the classic requel and focusing on a kid and then having Ralphie in the background, old Ralphie in the background.
Well, it probably will. Think about the fact that it probably will center on the kids and he'll just be the grumpy old man now. They may go the route of Cobra Kai, bring back in the legacy characters, and hilarity ensues. So that's all my news, and that leads right into this requel.
I've literally thought about nothing but Scream for the last 6 days.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to sit back, and I'm going to let you two hash this one out.
I can already tell that Jim doesn't like this movie.
No. So I am going to say that I loved Scream 4.
It's great.
After Scream 3, which was a disappointment, and I don't think anybody would argue that, I watched Scream 4 again right before I saw this. Loved it.
Opening is easily the best since the first one.
Yeah, and loved Emma Roberts in Scream 4.
Mm-hmm.
She was one of the greatest. Well, Jeff has seen it, so I'm not spoiling it for anybody, but hopefully you've seen it out there listening to us. But Emma Roberts, one of the best ghost faces at the reveal at the end. And I was genuinely surprised and loved it. The Kirby character.
Yeah, she's great.
Scream 4 is awesome. Scream 4 is awesome. You got a real flavor of the first one, I thought, when I watched Scream 4. And, just the poignancy that it was Wes Craven's last movie.
As a swan song, it's a great swan song.
Yeah.
And like I said, it has, of all the films, obviously the first one still has the best open. But the Stab 6 into Stab 7 into real life open is one of my favorite things. It's great. But, and like I said, I think to some degree it is difficult to watch this new movie without having at least seen the first one, but certainly seeing the other films really gives you perspective on a lot of the stuff that happens in this film. And before we even start to talk about the plot or anything else, I just want to say that this movie is so reverent toward Wes Craven. It is completely 100% shot in the style of his Scream movies. Like, you wouldn't necessarily know that there was a different director, because even the camera shots that they use, the crane shots, the way they move the camera through the house, it's absolutely 100%. Well, it's not. So it's not the actual house, because Stu's house is now an Airbnb.
Okay, but they recreated it.
They recreated it.
In the movie universe, it is Stu's house.
Yes, in the movie
and if
universe,
you didn't know any better, it's the exact.
It looks
same
like Stu's house. Yes.
Yes, and I think that works to its detriment. It is so spot on to the original Scream that I didn't really feel there was anything new that this thing brought. If anything, I thought these characters were lame. And just like we talked about Ghostbusters, bringing back the original legacy characters for why?
Well, I think so. Actually, a theme of family actually kind of runs through all the films, which is interesting to me.
Fast and Furious.
No, in the sense of like in the first film, Sydney tells Billy that she's scared she's going to turn out like her mother, like some bad seed or something, right? She's scared to have sex because she's afraid she'll be a quote unquote slut like her mom. And Sam has the same fear in this movie, right? That she'll turn into Billy. And
wait, spoiler alert. Can we just really cut back quick, because we are going to spoil the hell out of this. If you have not seen this movie, because you can't talk about the plot. The plot is the plot. The plot is somebody who's dressed up as Ghostface and run around killing people. That is the plot.
Yes.
The killer hook to these Scream movies is that it's not a Jason, it's not a Michael Myers that keeps coming back. It's always a different person, and it's a whodunit every time.
It is a whodunit, and this is another detriment to this, because you're getting into Michael Myers territory a bit. With this character is getting shot point blank range, and yet somehow miraculously shows up in the next scene unscathed. That
was less bothersome to me than Ghostface being about 6.5 feet tall at some point.
Magically grew the minute they were.
And then it's revealed that it's somebody that's maybe not even 6 feet tall that was being Ghostface.
Yeah, you really threw me for a loop on that one. It's like, what? It's taken a level of disbelief to whole new heights on this.
Well, I mean, that's always been a little bit of the thing with the other films too, because every film except for 3 has 2 killers.
Yep.
And every film except for 1 and 3 has at least 1 female killer who's significantly smaller than her compatriot. So
but if you just, because again, I'm not entrenched in this world, so I'm looking at it slightly different. And I know you love this franchise, and I'm not going to sit here and argue with you, the merits of the entire thing as a whole. But the whole point of these requels is that you're taking the other 8 movies in between and just dismissing them. They did the same thing with Halloween. Forget all the other crap in between. Just remember the whole Laurie story at the beginning, because that's where we're going to hook you. And that's what they do here.
No, that's not what they do, actually.
Okay, but
yes.
Well,
because I just rewatched all of them.
Well, I get it. So I'm missing. But as somebody who is not, I walked into the theater. I saw the first one. I knew what they were doing. I knew who Dewey was. I knew who Sydney was. I knew who Gail Weathers was. Were there other characters? Yeah, they do mention some of these other legacy characters who were killed, but I didn't feel that I missed out by not seeing 2, 3, or tying it into even 4.
There's this tie always back to family, right? And then this one, they obviously set up Sam to feel the same way Sydney does in the first movie, except in this case, like her parent is a serial killer. And actually, by the way, if you're a fan of the series, you will realize that her grandmother was also a serial killer, because Billy's mom is the killer in Scream 2.
2, right? See, I didn't know that.
So she obviously has this fear that she's going to become something. She feels she has to isolate herself from her sister because she wants to keep her safe. It's interesting to me. There's this idea that like the sins of the parents will fall upon the children. It's interesting thematically to me, because this is actually the story of Nightmare on Elm Street also. That's the plot of Nightmare on Elm Street.
But Sam also leaves because she's guilt-ridden that she broke up her family, because she confronted her mother and her father was there. And that led her father to leave.
Not her fault, right?
Right.
I mean,
but as a kid, you think it is. You think it is.
You carry that guilt. My parents divorced at a very early age. You do. So as a kid, you're like, what I do wrong? What I do to cause this? But Tara, the young sister, she's the one who's attacked. She is the Drew Barrymore character in the opening of this. Now, I'm going to assume this is the first time that character did not die.
It's true.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of nice that they do that. And she's messed up. Like, she is very, very messed up. So
I think that's purposeful, right? So once you know, spoiler alert, who the killer is, and it's Richie, who is Dennis Quaid's son, unmistakably Dennis Quaid's son
That
when you
smile.
see this kid smile. Because he's from The Boys, right? Because this is like the Diana Rigg effect from Last Night in Soho. As soon as I saw him, like the kid from The Boys, he is the killer. There's no way he'd be in this and not be the killer.
Dewey calls him out from the beginning. And I'm like, there is a giveaway, which is the kid claims that he's never even heard of these stab movies. And yet all of a sudden he's spouting all the rules.
Because he watches it in the hotel room, he claims.
On Netflix. He's catching up on Netflix, right?
You absorbed a lot there while all this crap is going on.
That's the whole thing. Like, Dewey tells Sam, look at the love interest. How long has he been in your life? You know, he says, oh, like, does your sister have a friend group? You know, Dewey has taken over for Randy in this film.
We also have the twins.
Yeah.
Randy's niece
and
nephew, the creepy twins. Also a red herring, because creepy twins are always suspect, but it doesn't turn out that way here. But what I was going to say, and I lost it once I was talking about Dennis Quaid's smile, is that I think that the survival of Tara in the beginning is a purposeful thing. They do not kill her because they need to get Sam back.
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The theme of like Dewey telling Sam the killer's already in her life, again, like he has the exact same conversation with Sydney in Scream 2. So they just keep taking these motifs from they obviously watch the first 4 films over and over, like know them front to back, and like took all these little things and put them in. One of the things I like about this film is it does something that hasn't been done since the first movie, which it acknowledges that teenagers have parents. I always find that scene at the beginning of Scream like very distressing, especially now as a parent of a teenager, when Casey's mom can hear her dying on the phone.
Oh, that's right.
You know, it's devastating. And this scene where Judy starts begging for Wes's life, and he's in the house, and it's so sad. He's like setting the table for them to have sushi. And she has the little note about the lemon squares on the fridge, which is a callback to
Scream 4. Yeah. And I love that character, by the way. The deputy from Scream 4, and now she's the sheriff.
She is bludgeoned in front of her own house.
Yeah.
She's gurgling with blood. Her cop car is on the corner with the door open and the lights blaring, and nobody sees this.
The thing about Judy's death, though, that makes it really sad is like that she inherited not only the mantle of sheriff from Dewey, but she also inherited kind of his earnestness and his love of the community. Like Woodsboro is her home and she wants to protect it. And that's always the sense that you got from Dewey, that like this is his place and he wants it to be safe. And it's so sad because, you know, she like hero worships Dewey in the 4th movie.
She's got a crush on Dewey in the 4th movie. She is trying to pull Dewey in the 4th movie. And because of that, she is a suspect in the 4th movie. She could be Ghostface. And it's a relief when she's not, because I liked her character a lot in the 4th movie. And I was very glad to see her. And then once it was revealed that she was Sheriff Judy, and that Dewey and Gail are no longer, I'm like, is she married to Dewey? But it's not the case. No. And I was like, is Wes Dewey's son? No.
Can we talk about Dewey too? Because, you know, you just talk about how she had a crush. I think everyone has a crush on Dewey because he's such an earnest character. And I give you kudos that you called this out before you even walked in the theater, that you were very concerned of. But once again, we're getting the Luke Skywalker treatment of The Last Jedi. You're introduced to Dewey and he's at the bottom of the barrel.
Well, but
he's living in a trailer. He doesn't. He resigned his commission as sheriff. He's not associated at all. He doesn't want to deal with these kids. And again, you bring him back just to kill him off.
I think there's a real logical progression with his character, and like so much of it is tied up in his relationship with Gail. And like, again, like you get this if you see them over the course of the 4 movies, where you see them go up and down with their relationship. And, you know, they've gotten together and they've broken up, and they've gotten together and they've broken up. And, you know, this last time, you know, he felt that he had acted in a cowardly way and he had just kind of left her. And, you know, it was hard for him to deal with that. So I think
just mentioned the fact that he was so tied into Woodsboro that when she moved away, he emotionally, he had to go back. He is forever linked to this town.
Yes. And before we saw the movie, I said to my husband and son, I was like, Dewey's going to die. And then I'm going to cry. And I did. And I said, and then at the end credits, it's going to say for Wes, and I'm going to cry again. And that's exactly what happened.
Well, you even had a character named Wes. So, I mean, come on.
I knew what was going to happen because you can't kill Sidney Prescott. You just can't, you know, and that's the rule.
But I would have assumed that you can't kill Dewey either.
No, I knew Dewey was going to go because the series already showed you that they were willing to like take the cut that cuts the deepest by killing Randy.
I would have thought that Gail would have been on the chopping block more so than Dewey.
The thing is that Gail has always been just on the edge of unlikable. And so it's too easy for a series to kill off Gail because, you know, people are always kind of like, well, I don't really care about her, you know, but you love Randy. And when Randy dies in the second movie, it's devastating. And so when Dewey dies in this, it's devastating. Again, like, I mean, they even tell you they had to show that, you know, the stakes were higher. They had to show you that anybody could die.
But again, it's revealed that it's this little girl that takes him out. I mean, she literally guts him. He fires 2 bullets directly. I mean, they're point blank range at this girl inside the hospital, which is completely empty, by the way.
Not for nothing, but the killer wears a vest in Scream 3.
But again, point blank range, even with a bulletproof vest on, is going to leave a scar.
It hurts. In fact, the theme of the vest comes back a couple of times. They didn't show it specifically in
not in this.
Yeah, but I just kind of made an assumption.
Well, you say if you have a prospective Ghostface, when he goes to get all of his or her gear, the vest is like on the rack right next to the Ghostface. So it's part of the requisite uniform, right?
Let's talk about that too, because these directors go out of their way to set you up for numerous jump scares that don't happen. How many times can we open a refrigerator or open a closet with the door closed? We all know what this jump scare is, but they do it so many times. It's.
By the way, speaking of like references back, so did you catch that Sydney is married to Mark Kincaid?
Did they mention?
They did. Well,
She says Mark.
And she had small children too, which was interesting.
Which is great because I can't wait for Scream 12 when Sydney's twin girls turn out to be the killers.
Well, I think it's interesting because Sydney's first boyfriend was the killer. Sydney's second boyfriend was killed. And Sydney's third boyfriend was a police officer who she married. So like that tracks, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about Billy tracking.
I did like that they brought Skeet.
They brought him back. I'm sure that he was more than happy to be in this movie.
What else is he doing?
But let's just talk about the timeline because Billy obviously dies at the end of Scream. So when would he have fathered this child? Before or during his relationship with Sydney?
During, I think.
She is his illegitimate bastard child. Billy.
The other thing, going back to Dewey for a second, I was thinking about this, you know, the relationship between Sydney and Dewey is really important to the series. And I never know if it's just that Neve Campbell's such a good actress or if it's just the genuine affection that she feels for David Arquette. But she smiles. When she sees him, she smiles like she smiles for nobody else. And there's such an obvious tie between them. You know, functionally, Sydney is Dewey's sister. As long as Dewey was alive, then Tatum was too, you know, because they had that tie between them, you know. So like when Sydney and Dewey were together, it was like Tatum was with them, you know, and he always treated Sydney like she was Tatum, you know, like she was his little sister. And one thing this movie didn't do that made me really sad was that they didn't show Sydney's grief over Dewey. Because I do think that relationship is so important. It's really focused on Gail and like Gail's loss of Dewey. That's a drawback But Sydney is in this movie, she's very resigned. You know, she's like, okay,
Here
we're
we
doing
go.
this again.
And I feel
we
very
go.
bad for Sydney because nobody ever wants to take her advice. Nobody. She says, I've been
I've done
through
this.
this.
I've been
Shut up. You know, that's
Right.
basically what they tell her. Nobody ever listens to her.
Wait,
It's
let's
like,
go back to Amber's house. No, that's a bad idea.
now,
No,
Christina,
let's-
before we get off the subject of Dewey, this question kind of popped into my head after seeing the new one. Would you have been more upset if Dewey was revealed to be Ghostface than him dying in
I
this?
think so.
Yes. That really would have, because that would have been out of character.
I agree with
Yeah.
you on that. Yeah.
That wouldn't have followed like who he was as a person. He's just not a realistic option as a killer.
Mhm. Although they were, I think, with him in his trailer and some of the comments that the kids made, I think that they were trying to make him one of the suspects in the
Mhm.
beginning. So the doubt is cast upon him.
Definitely. And I mean, I do think that scene where Mindy explains the rules of the requel is pretty fun. She's definitely channeling some Randy energy there, you know, and it's important to do that. But what I think is so interesting is how these kids like outright accuse each other of being murderers all the time. Like,
Yeah, they don't seem to like each other very much.
No,
These friends.
Yeah. Don't you? If this really is going on in this universe, at what point does somebody say maybe we should stop selling these ghost face costumes?
Especially in this town. Especially in this town.
one thing I've always liked about this series, though, is that the focus is on the survivor and not the killer. And I know I talked about this when we talked about the first film. And like, even more than that, I think it's just a very woman-centered series, not just in the sense that they're victims like they are in most horror movies, but, you know, that it respects women's intelligence, it respects women's strength, it respects women's emotional endurance, obviously, especially Sydney's particular emotional endurance. And Scream 3 in particular, for all its faults, actually really centers women in a way that was very ahead of the curve, because, you know, the main plot is a kind of about Hollywood's casting couch, and it was long before the Me Too conversations. I think it's one of the things that I continue to like about this series is that, you know, it makes women strong characters.
So where do you think they're going to go from here?
Yeah, they definitely are going to go somewhere from here, because Sam, she can go either way, because when she kills Richie at the end, she wipes the knife.
blood. Yeah, she wipes the knife. I love that little touch.
It doesn't seem that she is mentally unstable at the end. If
Visions
I
of
were
her
making
dead
this,
father.
I would give like a wink to the audience, like, is she or is she like off her rocker, you know, at the end? Because they definitely
Well,
set that up with the wiping the blade.
But I think that wink is whenever she sees Billy in the mirror. That she's unstable.
But she's like building Billy to be a hero in the mirror. It's not like he's telling her to go kill people. It's like he's telling her how to do the right thing in his own way. So I don't
it's
think that
interesting
they're
'cause
setting her up as a bad guy for the new
I
one.
mean, she could be like a Dexter type character, right?
could.
Yeah.
Like, where she kills bad guys, where she.
See, I would like that. At this
Mhm.
point, I think that you have mined this. I, as a casual viewer going in to watch another Scream 6, because this is 5. It's the same old, same old. It's the same thing.
Well,
At least in Halloween, they tried something a little different. Although Halloween Kills sucked.
I think that there's something that I was thinking about this week. It's really weird now to think about Gail's book, The Woodsboro Murders, right? The Woodsboro Murders is functionally a piece of true crime journalism. When Scream 2 came out, which is, you know, when supposedly the book came out in the universe, and then it gets made into like a schlocky slasher film. At the time, that makes sense because true crime was not prestigious. It was sort of considered something that was like over on the side, right? And now we're like in this era of prestige true crime, where there's like whole communities of people who meet in real life and on internet forums and like disseminate crimes and try to solve them in real time. And I realize the stab movies have always been kind of the part of the Ouroboros that is the Scream universe. And toxic fandom is definitely a thing, but it feels like a missed opportunity here to move the franchise into a new era because I feel like less than some obsessed horror movie fan, this seems like an opportunity to comment on our culture's fascination with murderers. Think about where we are, like culturally in this moment and how like instead of obsessed stab fans, they could have been like true crime nuts trying to like create their own.
Well, there you go. There's Scream 6 for you right there. If you're listening, there's your plot.
Isn't that what Steve Martin and Martin Short are doing right now on this, the murder?
Hey, that's only in their building, though. That's only in their building.
I mean, ultimately, in these things, motivation is kind of meaningless, but I just think that would have been interesting, and I think it would have been more of the moment than like an obsessed horror fan.
Because it seemed like the ending was a rehash of the motivation of the killers in Scream 4. So the whole thing kind of, like Jeff was saying, it did feel like it was just replaying all the events. It was fan service to those Scream fans because it needed to hit all the beats. And I thought it was lacking. One of the kids, when they go to visit Dewey and they leave, said it all for me, where they're like, he's way more fun in the movies.
Right.
And it was true. He is way more fun in the movies. The other movies.
Not so much this one.
And then he said while they were there, like when he was talking to Sydney on the phone, something about this one feels different. Yeah, it's no fun. That's what's different about it.
Wow.
Because it was very serious. Even though it was very self-referential, it was very serious compared to the other ones. I didn't get the sense of fun. It was trying to be, I think, a straight up horror movie.
The one thing that I keep reading about is that they talk about this, like how grisly these murders are. Am I just completely desensitized already that I did? I mean, outside of the neck stab, when I think it was Wes, right? Got the neck stab. I mean, that's a nice visual effect. Whether it was CG or that was practical, I have no idea. But other than that, it's just someone repeatedly stabbing with blood spurts. I didn't find anything horrific or gory about it.
It's funny that you say that because especially if you compare it to, I mean, even Scream 1. If you compare it to Scream 4, where I always say like Wes really went for it in Scream 4, like Olivia's murder, her room looks like a charnel house. Like there's literally blood everywhere. Her intestines are on the bed.
Well, even Casey in the first one, wasn't she hung up by her intestines?
Yeah, no, she wasn't hung up by her intestines. Okay, she was hung up and her intestines were hanging out.
They were out. Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't find this all that grisly.
Kevin Williamson talks about how when Wes was shooting the scene where Billy and Stu are stabbing each other in the kitchen, and he's like, it's so bloody, Wes. Why is it so bloody? And he's like, well, Kevin, you wrote a scene with two men stabbing each other in the kitchen. How would you like me to shoot it? I mean, I agree. I don't think it's very bloody compared to the other films. Like, I think it tries to go for a little bit of that squick factor, but it doesn't quite get there. There always seems to be this elaborate reason for the killings to happen, right? But it's not really. And that's
because the first movie, that was the whole juxtaposition, was they didn't really have a motivation.
Well, Billy wanted revenge for the relationship Sydney's mom had with his dad, right? And in the second one, Billy's mom wants revenge because Sydney killed her son. And in Scream 3, it's Sydney's half brother, who wants revenge because their mom didn't acknowledge him and he's getting his revenge on Sydney. And in 4, it's her cousin who wants to be a star.
Wants to be famous, yeah. And then in this one, they're giving Hollywood new ideas for a movie.
Decides, let's kill as opposed to going to see a therapist.
But I think then that's where like this veers away because all the other killers' motivations are directly related to Sydney in some way, and it's personal,
or family related or whatever. Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of like where this one veers away, they want Sam because she's Billy Loomis's daughter. You know, they want to set her up. But
And it would be a natural fit to set her up. Everybody would believe it.
I do think it's hard for a director, or in this case, a team of directors, to come into a franchise where, you know, one director has really put his stamp on the series in a really significant way. And, you know, one writer functionally has put his stamp on it, because the only one Kevin Williamson didn't write was the third one. I think no matter how reverent you are, it's going to be hard to step in. I don't know if it maybe would have been a better choice for them to try to make it more like Ready or Not, you know, because this is the whole Ready or Not scene.
Then you would have had the diehards of the franchise going, you deviated too far from what Scream is. Right. So yeah, I think in that sense, these guys are kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know, like I actually put in my notes, and I'm glad that you pointed out, there are scenes in this that are direct camera angles and shot for shot, you know, the television shot while they're sitting on the couch talking to the television with the Ghostface behind them. And it's like, all right, and it's on her phone, and she's like, you know, it's like a snake eating its own tail. That's
like, what I said, the Ouroboros nature of the stab and the
see, you used the big word.
You see, I'll take a line from Ghostface there. That's so fancy pants when she says at the beginning that the Babadook is her favorite horror movie.
Oh, the Babadook, yeah. I still prefer the Babadook. Is it how she ended it?
The music is by Brian Tyler, who also did Baba Hotep. Baba Hotep's one of my favorite scores. This one's, again, pretty reverential. It uses a lot of Marco Beltrami's themes from the other films. Love to hear that Dewey theme.
Dewey has a theme? I didn't never caught that.
Yeah, it's called Oh No.
Is it like whistling like the Andy Griffith theme?
No.
I didn't mention this yet, but I think my favorite line in the entire movie comes from Sheriff Judy when Ghostface calls her in the car and asks her what her favorite scary movie is. I prefer animated films and musicals.
That's right.
You must have to die now.
I really love Judy. I think she's a character who didn't really get her chance. I was kind of hoping she would transition into, you know, the new series.
Of course, because she's the sheriff now, so she would take the Dewey role, right?
Yeah,
but no.
Yeah, no.
No matter what their flaws, for the ups and downs of this series, this is the only horror franchise I can think of that acknowledges that death is sad and that, like, people are left behind and that it's horrible. Because normally in these films, there's no acknowledgement that
death from one kill to the next.
Death affects other people.
Yeah. Going back to our original killers, Billy and Stu, obviously Billy is in this movie as a ghost or as a vision. You guys must have read that little tidbit where there was a lot of vocal cameos going on here. So Stu is represented. You can hear his voice, Matthew Lillard. He's one of the kids when Richie is hustling everybody out of the house. I'm saving your life. I'm saving your life.
Yeah.
Might have been during that scene where there's a voice that says nice house. And it's his house. It's Stu's house.
I did not catch that at all.
I actually love that scene when he's like, saving your life, I promise.
No, sorry.
Saving your life.
I would have killed you if you stayed. Saving your life. I know, literally, I'm saving your life because it's me, the killer.
Meet me in a closet later.
I think he's very good, Jack Quaid, in this part, because I think he does a pretty good job of sort of playing all the layers of the confused innocent boyfriend and then like the, you know, he's so supportive, and then there's a few things that are great where like Amber stabs him in the hospital, right? She slashes his arm and he gives her a look. Later you realize what kind of look it is, but he looks so shocked and you realize that he's mad because they're in cahoots. Yeah. He's like, what are you doing?
Well, it's like Stu getting stabbed by Billy in the first one.
Yeah, we got to make this look real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fought you, you won.
It's just seeing Jack Quaid's face is so interesting to me because he does have his dad's smile completely, like from the nose down, he's Dennis Quaid, but his eyes are Meg Ryan's. So like,
she wants him back, by the way.
And Drew Barrymore, the voice of the principal at the beginning, doing the announcements. Yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't pick up any of this.
I didn't either, but I just read it afterwards. Okay. Yeah.
The one interesting fact I did read, which I guess David Arquette was pretty much the cool uncle on set, trying to hang out with these kids. But he is a licensed Bob Ross trainer,
Yes.
painter.
Yes, instructor.
I didn't even know this is such a this is such a thing. Like you go to like Bob Ross school to learn how to paint happy little trees.
And that's what he taught them to do on set, how to paint happy little trees.
Well, again, therapy. Don't kill people. Go to
He's also a professional wrestler. So I wonder if he also taught them how to hit somebody over the head with a chair.
Suplex.
There's a little Dawson's Creek scene on TV. I don't know if you guys caught that.
Yes, I did see that.
A little homage to Kevin Williams in there.
A lot of homages.
Yeah, well,
that's the motive of the requel, right? You can't have a requel without homage.
No, but I did like the speech where, they brought up Star Wars and all these other requels and Halloween. And that's what you get. So I guess if you know what you're going to get going in, you're going to enjoy it.
What kind of buckets would we give to Scream?
Christina's got to go first because I know that's going to be high. Only on the movie, though. You can't go the whole franchise. You can give 2 scores on the franchise if you want.
You guys go first because I need to.
See, I hate to say it. I'm going low on this. I did not enjoy this at all. You remember how mad I was at the Halloween Kills? I was not that mad at this, but I really it was just a rehash of the first one. I'm giving it a 2.
What did I give Halloween Kills? I don't remember. I don't want to go as low as Halloween Kills. I just saw Scream 4. I loved Scream 4, and I didn't love this. So I'd probably go 2 3/4 with this one.
So, and my son was right. I needed to put this in perspective. So now I can see it in the context of the whole series. So I'm going to say 3.5. I think if I talked to you on Monday, right after I saw the first movie and I was all crying and crazed, I probably would have said 4 because
you're crying in your bucket,
because I was
soggy popcorn.
I was so emotional. I've already mentioned this when we did the first movie, but I love picture credits. They kept the picture credits.
They did.
They gave Roger Jackson, who has been the voice of Ghostface since the first
film. We didn't even bring him up.
Is that a real thing? Can you get an app to sound like Roger Jackson?
You have to now. If you can buy a Ghostface costume, you can buy a little.
But I thought it was nice. They gave him a little picture credit with the Ghostface mask. So, which he hasn't had throughout the series. Also,
they should have just showed a phone.
Does he ever have a cameo with his face in the movies? Has he ever done that?
Not that I am aware of. I mean, the whole thing has always been that he's been sort of kept separate from the cast so that they don't associate his face with the voice. Also, by the way, I love that Salem song that they played over the credits. It is a special version for Scream 5, and that doesn't appear to be available as a single yet, but I love that song. Any Salem fans out there? In terms of the whole franchise, though, I don't think it's unworthy.
I think it's better than Scream 3.
Scream 3 is still the weakest of the series just because it's just not. You can feel they were doing a lot of rewrites, as they went. You can just feel it's not put together as well, although there are many, many individual moments I love from Scream 3. But I think Scream 3 is still, unfortunately, the weakest one of the franchise. But which really makes Scream 4 a gift, isn't it? Because it reunites.
It was a surprise. It was a surprise. I was expecting it to be lesser than Scream 3 was.
Yeah, it's so good. It does have a great cast.
And it's a sad thing reading that Wes had plans on making Scream 5 and 6, but because the box office was disappointing on Scream 4, those plans kind of got scuppered.
Yeah. I mean, disappointing, relatively speaking.
Relatively, right? Yeah. It wasn't a failure.
It still made a bunch of money, and still, no matter what, these films have always had very low budgets. So, this movie is going to make its money. It's already made its money back.
Yeah, it toppled Spider-Man for the first weekend. I don't know if it maintained that for the second weekend, but yeah, made a lot of money. So let's leave Woodsboro. Let's leave the town of Woodsboro and let us go to Massachusetts for Black Friday. We'll go to the concession stand and we'll be right back.
It's intermission time. The show starts in 10 minutes. Yes, folks, it's intermission time. So how about taking a break? Get out and stretch a little and relax before the show begins again. And why not make it refreshment time, too? We have lots of tasty, delicious treats waiting for you at the refreshment center. There's hot popcorn, so golden good and fresh out of the popper. And all kinds of refreshing ice-cold soft drinks. Sizzling hot dogs just bursting with juicy goodness. Ice cream so smooth and delicious, you'll hanker for more. Plus, all the most popular candy bars and many other favorite treats. So why not visit the refreshment center now? Our courteous attendants are ready and waiting to serve you with a wide and wonderful variety of good things to eat and drink. So step right up and make yourself at home.
Okay, we are back and we are talking Bruce Campbell's latest, Black Friday. Now, this is a fantastic, fun horror movie that I would rank up there with Army of Darkness, career best turned by Bruce Campbell. Okay. None of that's true. None of that's true. But I want Bruce Campbell to like us. So we have to say whatever we say here with a grain of salt. Please be aware of that as we're talking about this.
So
if Bruce Campbell ever heard this, he would not like us. I want him to like us.
You think we're going to be the first people to bash this movie?
We may be the first people to say it's good. I don't know.
That is true. That is true. We may be the first people to review it.
I don't know about that.
This thing's been floating around since November, and we just found out about it.
I said last week I had high hopes for this because it's Bruce Campbell. Come on, how can you not have high hopes for a Bruce Campbell movie?
Kurtzman did the FX,
and the lead is the little girl from Pan's Labyrinth. Is that crazy or what? It has some star power in this. Patrick Stump does the music from Fall Out Boy. It's mostly loud, abrasive punk pop, if you want to call it that.
So that's Fall Out Boy.
But yeah, it's basically a Dawn of the Dead type situation, but with meteors coming down from space. It takes place on Thanksgiving night, but you're in this town in Massachusetts, and meteors are coming down, and they're spores of some kind that have they're parasites, and they turn people into monsters that gather and make a big giant monster. And the workers in this one toy store are stuck trying to fight this, and they're stuck in the store, and the shoppers are all turning into monsters. So it's not subtle. It is not subtle at all. Hits you over the head. Shoppers are bad and idiotic.
I wish it had a little more bite in the consumerism commentary.
It's always a meteor, though, right?
Yeah.
How else are the aliens going to get?
How else are they going to explain it? That's the easy catch-all explanation. It's a space thing. That's all we have to say.
And why do people always go toward the squicky, obviously alien thing?
Like within the first minute, something comes screaming through the ceiling, and the guy goes right to it. And I'm like, have you not seen Alien? Have you not seen any alien movie at all?
At least in The Blob, the guy had a stick.
I would have been great if he had like one of those little price guns.
It would have.
I mean, it's kind of nice that this movie doesn't mess around and pretend to be something that it's not.
No, it definitely does not.
No, it wears this low grade right on its sleeve.
That said, there were just a lot of elements that I felt like really didn't come to fruition.
No, none of the characters were likable at all.
I mean, I felt for Chris, who is a germaphobe, because I too am a germaphobe.
And this is not a good movie for a germaphobe to be in.
I thought Chris's germophobia would come back at the end in some kind of useful way. It would be somehow related to the plot that he would destroy the alien with hand sanitizer.
With his hand sanitizer, right? Yeah, something. No.
I thought that it would be, but ultimately it's just like a weird personality quirk. And there is kind of a subplot about corporate greed, because it turns out they were going to make them work on Thanksgiving and not pay them the bonuses they promised.
You can't do that. Yeah.
And then they were going to let them all go after the holidays and all
that
this
does
stuff.
happen, by the way. We abuse you guys all Christmas, and then it's like, yeah, you're not.
But it is a fun setup, especially if you worked retail, because you kind of know what these characters are going through. You know, everybody that's worked retail has had to work on Black Friday, and you're kind of banding together as the employees, you know, against the hordes coming in. So you can see yourself in their shoes. And I, at least, you know, being a zombie fan, always looked at shoppers when I worked in retail as zombie hordes attacking us. So I think there's a potential here, even though it's been done to death. The attempted laughs weren't funny, and I didn't really like the characters that much, especially
Bruce Campbell is
especially
unlikable.
Ken. He was a creepy guy.
Yeah, he had no redeeming qualities
No.
whatsoever.
Well, the other thing
Story
too
arc.
is like this movie doesn't know who the main character is. Like, is it Ken or is it Chris? Because they don't like settle on one. And I
Yeah,
think
neither of them really step up to be the protagonist.
And I think that is also to its detriment because it's like, so who am I supposed to
They're
care
not,
about
right.
here?
They don't really
Like,
band together. They don't really, you know, try and figure this thing out. I'm guessing that it was so low budget they couldn't even afford a cinematographer because everybody is shot in black. It's backlit, but you're not seeing any of their faces. It's just silhouette. It's like, what is going on here? But
did
Bruce
you know-
Campbell, here you are. You're touting Bruce Campbell. He's executive producer on this, and he stars in it. But he's not a likable character, nor is he got a lot of screen time.
Well, I think that he probably didn't want to, you know, bring Ash into this. Subverting expectations. Don't criticize the Bruce.
That's all I'm going to say about Bruce.
I mean, I don't think a character has to be likable, but I wish somebody in the cast had been likable enough for us to connect to.
Root for it, to cheer
It
for it.
doesn't like it doesn't
You
have
want to
to
see
be.
the customers take him out. You're like,
You do get Jonathan's motivation, and he's sad. He's a lonely guy. And he concedes at the end when he tells Marnie that she did the right thing when she let the woman go who was stealing because it was for her family. So you know he's not heartless. And so I think the character redeems himself when he has that little moment. And then he sacrifices himself so the
You
others
know-
can get away.
Archie is okay, and I was kind of rooting for him to get to the end because he was the only one sensible enough to pick up the nail gun.
But he didn't last very long. And that was,
no.
yeah, they all kind of got dispatched really quickly. So they whittled down all these characters that they could have done more with, I think, as an ensemble. And they just got down to this core group of who the stars should be, of 4 or 5 actors. But what was the bear's name? Dower Dennis, I think.
Yeah.
All the things that he was saying throughout. So I thought that was funny. If I concede one thing that was funny, I think it was Dower Dennis.
Did you notice that Jonathan's regional manager award actually says regional manager?
No.
No. And there was that concession to Evil Dead where he says they're never really dead.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they beat that over the head where he says, I said that they were never really dead.
Just in case you missed that joke.
Yeah,
Well done,
yeah.
Let
fans.
me look at the camera and wink while I'm
Yeah.
at it. But I also feel that like Black Friday, like 10 years ago, this might have been relevant. It might have been funny. But with online sales, are people really still showing up at midnight lined around the corner of Walmart?
Only really annoying people still
Last
show
time I
up.
did that was in 1999 when Star Wars action figures were dropped.
Oh, what a waste that was. I still have that
Yeah, well,
first
I,
figure.
yes, I unloaded all of them for like $1 a piece.
Mm.
Someone overpaid.
And Chris doesn't end up with Marnie. The creepy guy ends up with Marnie at the end. Ugh.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, there's an idea in here, and it just needs to be a little more developed, you know. But really, more than anything, this movie just suffers from a lack of focus. And there were a couple of places where it was pretty obvious that scenes had been cut. Like when they
The
go
editing was horrible.
when they go from the truck and then suddenly they're on the roof, and I'm like, what? What happened there? Like I didn't even realize their goal was to get to the roof. I thought they were
Yeah,
trying to get out of the store.
The editing on this was really bad. You know, I'm surprised you haven't brought this up yet, but if you want to watch a more clever current alien invasion movie, Save Yourselves.
Yes, Save Yourselves was much more fun than this.
So let's talk about the motives of the aliens here, or the parasites. So they're taking over shoppers to turn them into like mindless zombies. And
They
then
already are,
these
though.
shoppers are congregating into one giant blob mass to make a giant alien shopper, which kind of looks like Blair from the end of The Thing.
Yeah,
'Cause it's
but
all
like
like these-
but like a kaiju version.
Like a kaiju version. And apparently the aliens are only taking over shoppers because at the end you see another alien coming out of another store, you assume, like that's off in the distance. So is it only shoppers that are affected by this?
But again, the idea is here that, right, if you want to make a commentary on consumerism or whatever, fine, but it just goes nowhere.
It's just not clear what the ultimate point of it all is, except maybe to burn down the toy store.
Yeah. You mentioned the toy store. It was filmed in an ex-Babies R Us in Boston.
They're all vacant.
They're all vacant. Yeah.
Mine finally just turned into a storage facility.
The writer, Andy Kreskoviak, worked in a Toys R Us in Chicago. So that is why you hear reference to Illinois towns like Bartlett or Schaumburg in the background, even though it's supposed to take place in Massachusetts. Yeah.
Yes, I did catch the Schaumburg reference. I was like, Schaumburg? What? That's where the IKEA is.
And it was released November 19th on my birthday.
Happy birthday to you. A present from Bruce Campbell.
Yes, a present from Bruce Campbell. His presence is a present.
Right.
Buckets.
You have to go lower than Scream. Give me a break.
Yeah, I'm at 1.5. I'm at 1.5 on this, and I want my 39 back.
Yeah.
Your high hopes were dashed.
They were dashed. Two.
Yeah, I'll say 1.5 also.
To quote one of the characters, this is next level bath salt fish.
Sorry, Bruce.
Yeah. Yeah, well, his name alone got us in the door, right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
So don't go check it out for yourself.
So what are we doing next week?
What are we doing next week? Oh, we're looking up. Speaking of aliens
and things falling to Earth. Yeah.
Meteors.
Don't Look Up is the title of the film that we are covering. Available on Netflix. So anybody that hasn't seen it yet, please watch it. Come back and listen to us next week, talk about it. Along with Don't Look Up, we are covering a classic, another one of these things that we've never, ever spoken about on this show.
No.
After 200 some odd episodes, Dr. Strangelove.
You got to just find the right pairing.
Yeah, you do. You do. We've still never done 2001 talking about Kubrick.
We haven't even talked Terminator 2. We got all kinds of crazy stuff going on. We got another 500 episodes in us. So,
but yes, Don't Look Up with Dr. Strangelove.
I used to call it Dr. Strangeglove.
Dr. Strangeglove?
Yeah, as a kid, because I think he wears gloves at some point in the movie.
And Depeche Mode wrote a song about this movie.
What?
Anybody that knows Depeche Mode will be chuckling to themselves, hopefully, after that joke. But yes, thank you for joining us this week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
I prefer animated films and musicals.
And everything. I'm